Okay, and we're live, I think. Just gonna. Okay, cool. YouTube says we're live. Awesome. All right. Hopefully, I did everything right. And now I can just turn on my camera and start talking. Awesome. Happy Monday morning. It is 8:25 a.m. Hope you all had a lovely weekend. And today we are going to be talking about events, specifically event handling within HSDS React and just maybe just React in general. So if we take a look at the docs for events from React, one very interesting thing is, well, I'm not even going to take a look at the docs. Well, there are docs within within React for their events, and the argument that you get when you fire an event. So, for example, let's pretend I have a button component and I do on click, and then I do a thing, right? And cause to do a thing is here we get the event. Relax. Yes, Lint, I know this is wrong. It's fine. So this guy that you get here, you can do all the normal things that you would be able to on an event, like event stop propagation, event pre-event default. You can pluck the target from the event, and so on. However, this is not a normal event. This is a React synthetic event, which is this. This is something that React uses to be able to work with events internally within their system. And it's not a one-to-one. If you were to receive an event from a native HTML JavaScripty kind of click event or whatever event, it's not the same. Even though it has basically all the same APIs that you would get here. So with that said, that's what it is. Oops. And here I'm going to go into how we handle events within HSApp or HSDS React. So we have two components. One is called KeyPressListener. The other one is Event Listener. These were one of the first components that I've added into HSDS React back in the day, back in the heyday. And these were primarily inspired by Shopify Polaris. A lot of things were inspired by Shopify Polaris. That's where I started learning a lot of this React component-y kind of stuff. It was great. I don't know if they still have it. Do they still have it? Maybe. Yeah, they still got it. So the idea was instead of binding your events for your components, like I don't know, let's see, I don't know, cons, no, not cons, class some component extends. Let's go with a theme today. Let's go with South Park. Okay, React component. Typically, you would add your event bindings here. When it did mount, you would do like window dot add event listener for, I don't know, resize, and then you would fire when the thing resize Kenny dies, because that's what happens to Kenny inside of South Park. Well, not anymore these days, I don't think, but I don't know. I haven't seen them in a while. I haven't seen it in a while. Component will unmount, and then you would remove your event listener like that. This is fine, but then it gets very repetitive the more you have to do this throughout your code base, especially from a component library level. That's why I have things like KeyPressListener and Event Listener. So when you do a render and you do a return, you have your Kenny component that does a thing, is really adorable. You instead have Event Listener. The type is resize, and the handler is this dice. And now you don't need to do this because this one handles the mount and unmount, the binding and the rebinding all by itself. I believe it's type. No, it's wrong. I'm wrong. Event. That's why types are handy, because now I'm just coding in some random untitled thing that has no awareness of my types and my components. Yeah, so that's automatically very, very handy. Um, The other thing that you can do with this event listener is, in addition to specifying the type, the event, and the handler, man, it's only 8 something in the morning. You can also specify the scope. So by default, the scope, I believe, is window. Yes. But you can override that by providing it with document. Because sometimes you want to bind your things to document, or you can, I guess, bind it to particular elements as well, like this node, and you get that node from, you can do a ref here, and then set node ref, and here you do, I'm gonna change this to a JSX file. That way you can get some syntax highlighting for you folks out there who like syntax highlighting, which is the majority of folks that. Oh no, it's not just gonna complain. Oh man, why are you complaining? Do I need to do this? And then it's gonna stop complaining. Yeah, it's fine. It's gonna complain a little bit. Set node ref. What was I saying? Oh yeah, syntax highlighting. For most of the folks out there who like it, I personally turn it off for the most part, but that's because I'm nuts. Node equals node. Yeah, so for sometimes when I code, I'll change it so it looks like this. There's a VS Code theme called Gray Matter, which is nice. I've customized it a little bit, but it basically turns off all syntax highlighting. I'm going to jump back to here. Okay, so you can also set the event to listen to particular DOM nodes, which is handy, by doing something like this. And this convention, I think, hooks has more or less, I wouldn't say made obsolete, made this much better, I would say. And the reason for that is because event listener and key press listener does something very special within HSDS React, and that is when you bind things to document, they are out of the box iframe aware. What that means, this is a constant thing, man. You might have heard me talk about this from other videos where I spend maybe 10 minutes talking about how tricky and important the iframe out of the box stuff is. And that's because in React, when you do something like document, add event, I don't know, when you bind events or do anything to the document, excuse me, or nodes attached to the document, no, anything that has to do with document, it automatically assumes window document, where if your thing happens to render within an iframe, oh geez, and the iframe has a document, and your component renders here, let's have a Randy Marsh. Let's say you had a Randy Marsh component that renders within an iframe of the document. If you have something in there that's bound to document, you would expect it to be bound or event bound here. It's not. It's event bounded up here, which is unfortunate because now anytime you do something or this does something, nothing happens. Your event doesn't fire because it's bound to this guy. And for us, because we have to support iframe rendered stuff, it's good to have iframe document awareness out of the box. That way the person implementing these things never have to think about it. So the way that's done is, this is very tricky. Excuse me, give me a second. I need to drink my coffee. Okay. So here is how it's done. Just taking a look at this code now. Interesting. Get closest document. Closest document. No, document owner. Interesting. Okay. I need to refactor this. So this has been improved. What I was going to say is there is a very special utility function within helps get React utils. That is get document from component. And it does exactly that. You give it a component and it automatically gets the document for you. The closest document that it assumes that you're trying to refer to. This is, I guess, the initial implementation of that. So almost the entirety of React utils used to live within HSDS React. And that it has then been abstracted out, which is great because now it's reusable throughout our various libraries and code bases and stuff, but there's still remnants of it here. So this is a really great example where I'm taking a look at this, and this is the initial implementation of get closest document, which is now get document from components. Anyway, what this does is when you, at least for key press listener, when the scope is the document, and this right now what you're seeing, this is the window document object. Instead of using it directly, it'll try to get the closest document according to your the node, which is itself here. So this is slightly tricky because in order, this is the older implementation, the newer ones are slightly improved, but this is something nice to know, where if you wanted to get the DOM node of a particular React component, you can do something like this. React DOM, find DOM node, and then you pass it the component like that. And what React DOM find DOM node is, it'll look through the document object somehow and find its look through its tree, find the DOM node, and then associate both of them, and then go here, or here's the DOM node that you're talking about. However, if your component happens to render null or nothing at all, like that, and now if I'm going to pass in my Randy Marsh component inside of here, or if I'm within the Randy Marsh component, I try to pass in this, React DOM can't find it anymore because there's no DOM node for you to find. And that's particularly annoying. So at least for the older implementation of keypress listener and event listener, I render some sort of DOM node here so that the system knows how to find the DOM node that knows how to find itself. And once you find yourself, once you find a particular HTML element like, I don't know, let's do it here. What am I looking at? I am looking at a strong tag. Great. So in Chrome, if you do $0, you're able to target the element that you're inspecting via this element inspector thingy. So if I do 0 and I do owner document is the DOM API that allows you to, well, get the document that contains the element that you're referring to. So that's what this older implementation does. It gets the owner document from the DOM node, and then it refers to that document instead. So it'll try to do its best to grab the closest document for you if you happen to use document as its scope. And both event listener and keypress listener do the same. And that is how they are able to, well, that's how they're able to correctly bind things to document when you want to listen to particular events. And yeah, that's basically it. There are some other enhancements to this component. These other things are a little bit more straightforward, I think, compared to the intricate kind of trying to handle document finding and doing all that kind of stuff for you, and that is the whole getting the closest document according to the DOM node thing. Everything else is a little bit more straightforward. So here we have basically the modifier handling system within keypress listener. And this is really nice because anytime you build a component, especially a utility component similar to this, you want to make it easy for the consuming user to do things, right? So let's see, how do I open it? Yeah, there we go. So key press listener. So if I'm by default, I gotta check the APIs. The key code is whatever, and the type, right? This one has a type. So the key press listener, if I have a type of, by default it's key up, but now I'm gonna change it to key down. This is very similar to document add event listener key down. Yeah, key down, and then some function. Handler. And the handler is some fune. Some fune is up here that does a thing. Right now it's a nope. It doesn't do anything. Right. So here I can add modifier, and then I can type in the word shift. So now the key press only works if I have shift held down. And I can do the key code of, the only one I remember is enter, which is 13. Within HSDS React, there is a handy dandy constants file with keys. Again, borrowed from Shopify. Thank you so much, Shopify. You do great work. That has a map of all the keys that are probably the ones that you want to use, and the key code attached to it. So here, you would do something like import keys from / constants keys. Instead of 13, you'd write keys, enter. Great. So now I have something that looks like this. So whenever I press the enter key with shift, anytime it's held down, it'll fire some fune. And by adding this particular component to my component, I am able to basically compose this behavior without having to worry about um, binding things when the component mounts and unmounts. Basically, this is hooks before hooks existed, which is kind of nice. It follows the same kind of pattern where your behavior or things you want to do is kind of written in a declarative functional way without having to worry about life cycles too much, which is nice. Because like the equivalent of you doing something here would be before I can fire some fune, I have to do like const handle key press, and then you have your event, and then you like do stuff with the event to figure out shift plus enter. Then you can some fune like that, and then you would pass handle key press in here instead. And oh wait, so now I mean if you didn't have this, you'd have to figure out what the document is and lots of hairy stuff. But yeah, this keeps it simple. And having some components, or sorry, having some properties like modifier makes it very simple for you to compose stuff and write. So anytime you want to build utility components, I don't know, that's a thing. I just made up utility components, that word, like right now. There might be a thing, I don't know. I just kind of came up with it on the fly. So yeah, anytime you want to build one of these things, um, having some handy dandy props that kind of convenient props, I would say, that kind of handle some of this hairy logic that you would have to repeat a lot when you want to write functions is something that's worth considering. It's nice. That's basically what modifier is. And oh yeah, this node modifier thing is if I press enter, only handle this some fune method thing when there's no modifier held. So if I press command enter, it won't qualify. If I press command shift enter, it won't qualify. It'll only pass through if there are no modifiers whatsoever. No modifier keys, I would say. So yeah, this is another handy little flag there. Event listener, this one's very, very straightforward. Yeah, all it does is just sets the event for you. So one very interesting thing that I don't think has been solved yet, at least not from the React world, and we've run into this before, is and this one has nothing to do with the event listener component or the key press listener component. So if you happen to be including React, I'm going to switch back to my camera because not much code is going on. No, there's something going on. Great. So if I had my main app, which is up here, and it happens to not be a React one, main, not React app. And there's a bunch of logic and it does things. Oh my gosh, stop. There we go. Autocomplete, man. There's the love-hate thing. Most of the time it's handy. Other times I just want to type incorrect things and let me get on with it. So inside of your main application, if you happen to have event bindings that aren't within the React world, so maybe you had an older application like we do that's like jQuery backbone, kind of marionette kind of some things, um, then you would be attaching events basically to this. Add event listener, I don't know, resize or something. What? Key press? No, key down, yeah. And then here our friend some funner, it does a thing. Um, but if you were to add something like that within your now React app, and they have something like this. And if I had to do, say, some DOM node, that. And some DOM node, this is like you did something where you were able to pluck the DOM node from the ref. So if I had a div ref, I'm writing terrible code right now. This is just pseudocode for me to illustrate my example. This node equals node. Nope, this some DOM node equals node. So let's pretend you already did something like this, and now you're tapping into some DOM node to add some sort of event listener thing. Let's pretend you did this, or I mean, you can do on key down some funner. Right, fine. Let's pretend we did that. And within your component, or within your application, some funner, you had your event, and you did something like this. So what we've noticed is when your React component or React application renders within another JavaScript thing, and that other JavaScript thing has some global event listeners bound to like document or something. Even though you prevented default or you did something sort of like stop propagation, this somehow fires after this one, and it's not behavior that I'd expect. I don't know why this happens. I really don't know why this happens. So PL's a coworker of mine, great guy. We ran into this problem every now and then when we were building something where, like, we're trying to prevent some sort of behavior that might have been listening somewhere else, like some key press listener that was been instantiated somewhere else, and we couldn't do it. It was strange because for some reason the React ones fire after the native ones. So that's something to consider. React does have this React event native event, something like that. Not React native. I need the, there is a native something. Native event. Yeah. There is a way for you to get this thing. No, oh my gosh. I promise you there is a way for you to get this. Um, oh yeah, Stack Overflow. Okay, I can't find it. This is embarrassing. I swear there is a thing. Native DOM event. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, there's some sort of event hub thing, whatever. I don't know. I just want to find the native event somewhere. Okay, so this is not in here, but this article will probably explain why this is happening. As for the fix, I have absolutely no idea. Um, you can probably write a way that'll fix a problem, but trying to make this trying to make this kind of handle itself from a application kind of level where you don't have to worry about fiddling with the event um, methods from a granular level would be nice. So for us, most likely we'll solve it with things like key press listener or event listener, where that kind of logic is kind of baked into the components, because we do need to integrate React with non-React things. And within our application, typically the React application is instantiated from a backbone or Marionette origin. So yeah, this has been a deep dive, kinda within. I mean, there wasn't too a lot going on within these ones, but it's important to know because we do a lot of key press and event listening within HSDS and also React, and it's nice to know that figuring out the document stuff is kind of handled for you within these components. And the other thing is when you go to construct utility-based components, pass in some properties that make it easier to interface or um, to write behavior where you don't have to manually tweak modifier keys or things of that nature when you're trying to specify a key press event. So yeah, hopefully you found this helpful. You've been wonderful. I've been Q, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye.